Oh my goodness, it's Friday and I can't wait for the weekend. But before we get there, we have another episode of There's No Crying in Crochet because we know you
Yes,
have
we do.
frustrations and you have things you want to know all the things about. And we're
Mhm.
here to give you the 411 on the stuff that matters to you in crochet. I
Yes.
am Debbie of Madam Stitch, and this is my cohort in crime.
I'm Biz of Busy Crochet.
And we are so happy to have you here with us. The two of us have a blast talking to each other anytime we get together. And to have you in on the discussion is even better. So, we're going to get started with a little bit of business. First up, we're live streaming to YouTube. That means if you are with us on YouTube right now, you're seeing this in real time. Me in my little studio in Pennsylvania, and Biz in her studio in Florida. But we're always on there as a
Mhm.
replay. And I've been adding, Biz, I've been adding some videos to my YouTube channel in the last couple of weeks, just loaded up with stuff. So if you
Yeah.
subscribe to both of our YouTube channels, then you'll get the notification every time we post something new. And if you are
Yes, and
watching on Facebook,
I'm almost at the edge of putting some new videos up as well. They've taken forever to edit. So
but you just got a new phone, so now we
I
can wait
did.
for all the things. It's
Yay.
nice. Yay. Okay. So if you're watching on Facebook on one of our Facebook pages, make sure that you give StreamYard, which is the app that we're using to bring this podcast to you, permission to display your name because we love talking to real names, not
Yeah.
Facebook users. We still like talking to
We
Facebook
love
users,
you.
don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but we would love to know who you are. All right, let's see if we have some comments so far. Oh,
Bonjour.
Carolina is here. Hello,
Hi,
hello,
Carolina.
hello. All right, so Biz,
Yes.
what's up this week?
What's up this week? I'm feeling more accomplished than I have in the last couple weeks. I'm still dealing with a little bit of arm things, but they're getting better. They're starting to heal, and it's not as intrusive. And I've learned how to wear the compression gloves and stuff like that while I'm working, so that I can get more done. But other than that, it's been really kind of chill as normal. We had some power outages over the weekend last weekend, hence why we couldn't be here last week.
Yep.
Because it's just been lots of rain and lots of storms coming through. We are Florida after all. But a lot of it's been coming, from like I want to say Texas, Louisiana area over.
Yep.
The hurricanes usually come from the right. So I just, we decided that we're going to make sure that the what is that thing called? The generator is for sure working this year because it just feels like one of those years.
Yeah, it's been a spring so far, hasn't it? I mean, you guys have just gotten
Yeah.
the south and the western edge of or the eastern edge of the Midwest. It's just
Right.
gotten pounded with stuff. We have rain,
Yeah.
but it's mild mannered compared to what you're having. It's just annoying and dreary.
I mean, we get that too. I say it all the time, and I'm probably repeating myself for the 100th time on here. But when we moved to Florida, I was like, "Oh, the sunshine state." It's actually the cloudy state. So yeah, we get more clouds than we do sunshine here.
Yeah, I have the feeling that calling it the cloudy state would not be good for tourism,
It's
but
not.
just a guess.
And quite honestly, I think it's where we're located. I think the peninsula is nothing but sunshine because it's really hot over
Yeah. Oh, yes, I would not want to live in that part of the state.
there. Me either.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
just been super busy over here. Oh, Julie is on with us. Glad to be here. Hi, Julie. Nice to see you.
yes, hi.
Um, so it's been super busy over here. Not only am I trying to get a big project done for the next in the next couple of weeks, my daughter is trying she just finished buying a house and we're trying to get her moved up here, and so extra time on the weekends, and I actually made a turnaround trip yesterday in between appointments,
Mhm.
She lives about an hour and 15 minutes away just to pick up boxes to bring up here.
Mhm.
So, the next couple of weeks are going to be just getting all of her stuff up here. And I think all of us are just really, really kind of tired. Plus, extra stuff for the grandkids. Like last night, we went to the 14-year-olds band concert. So good. Just really fun to watch those kids play.
Yeah.
And Little League baseball games. There's just, all the grandparent stuff, which you love to do, but it's stuff.
It's just extra.
It's extra stuff.
Right.
So it's been really busy, but I think things are gonna calm down once school is out. We'll see.
Yeah. And I
We
forgot
shall
to say,
see.
I picked up my new glasses on Tuesday. I could see,
She can
and
see, she
I
can
can see,
see. It's
and I
great.
don't have to wear double reader glasses over my glasses anymore. But I will say this, when I put my glasses on, the whole room went, "Woo!" Because,
It's just like
and I have been dizzy for about 4 days now. So, the thing is that
Yep,
it's a progressive, so I'm trying to figure out where the distance, the mid-range, and the
yeah.
reading is, because 'cause I've holy crap. So I'm like this constantly.
I tried progressives once, and when I nearly killed myself going down the steps, I said, "Nope, we're d"
Yeah.
well, because you look down, so now you're
Mhm.
looking through the reader part.
You can't see
And
anything.
it's fuzzy, and you're
Yep.
yeah, at this stage of the game, at this stage of life, falling down the steps, really not a good cool thing. So,
No. I'm not sure that I
anyway,
would do progressives again. I'm not 100% sure on that, just because I feel like, or maybe if I get used to them, I will. But I still feel like I am dizzy a lot. But maybe it's just because it's
mm,
still only been, 4 or 5 days.
yeah, it may still be new.
Anyway,
All right. We have caught up with our weeks, and I hope that all of you
yay.
have had a good week. And now, drum roll, please, because this week's episode, oh, we're so excited about this one because Biz and I absolutely adore making blankets.
Yes.
Biz's are epic. Mine are baby blankets and comfort and simple crochet, just all.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about how we assemble our blankets. I do a lot of squares,
Mhm.
how we put those together, and how we border them, and just give you some ideas for things that you might want to use in your blankets. Because, a lot of times you might find a pattern that you really like for a blanket, but maybe that seaming technique doesn't quite work with what you had in mind. So,
Mhm.
it gives this episode, I hope, will give you the opportunity to play around a little bit with a pattern that you've seen and customize it to your own tastes, to your own crochet style preferences, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
we're all about giving you what we love to do and a couple of other ideas as well so that you can go out and find them. Some of them we have on our blogs. Do you have tutorials for a lot of your seaming and border methods or no?
No. No.
I
And
was that was
mostly
just information.
mostly because, if I'm going to have a method, it is included in the pattern, and if I'm gonna have a video, I have a video for the whole thing. So, I mean,
Right.
yes, I guess I do have a lot of videos out there for my edges and stuff like that, but it's at the end of a whole blanket.
Right. Yeah, so one of the ways I've been experimenting with making videos for my projects has been to create cards,
Mm,
so that you can see exactly where in the video I'm talking about a certain subject. And I
mm,
think if your border instructions are at the end of a video, it's not difficult to just take the cursor and slide it along the line just to see where the border starts. But anyway, I digress. So I put together a presentation because we figured this was a show and tell kind of thing
yeah,
rather than a speak and imagine
mhm,
kind of thing. So I'm going to pull it up here. All
yeah,
right. So we're going to just talk about some of our go to techniques for finishing our crochet blankets. Um, one thing I wanted to preface this with saying is that I I don't know about the rest of you, but when I'm making a blanket or a big piece like that, for me, the big part is the exciting part.
Mm,
It's the one that I when I'm finished with that big part, either the body of the blanket or all the squares, my brain goes, "Oh, you're done. That was it."
yeah.
And then, un unfortunately or fortunately, you still have some things you need to do to your blanket to make it a blanket.
Right.
Um,
Well, if you
all
want it
right,
to look
we're gonna get
finished.
well, and we do, although I have been known, oh, this is terrible, to get all the way to the end of the body and go, "Well, yeah, I'm done. That's it. We'll
Yeah,
just keep
I've
it that way."
been there, done that. It just depends
All
on
right,
how
my friends.
labor intensive it is.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's see what we have up first here. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the seaming techniques that we use that are common in the crochet world. Hopefully, you can see what you need to see in these pictures. But
Mhm.
one of the most common ones when you're putting squares together is just a whip stitch.
That
So,
is my
when
favorite way of
you
attaching.
is it really? So
Yep.
when you do a whip stitch, Biz, do you go through both outer loops on both squares or just the inner touching loops?
It depends on what I'm going for. I wanna say up until about 2 years ago, I was exclusively through all of the loops. And then I realized that I wanted the square to kind of stand up and away from
Mhm.
the blanket itself. So I started going through just the back loops only. And it what it does is it just kind of creates an edge around each of your squares so that it kind of highlights it, and your stitching is to the back. It's not quite as prominent. You don't have to worry about whether or not your yarn matches as well. But I want to say that I use both equally now. It depends on
You
the
know,
application.
you bring up an interesting point. Um, Normally, I sort of tend to be on the straight and narrow with my choices, and I'm trying to be a little more adventuresome with my choices, as we know
Mhm.
from past conversations. And
Sure.
it occurs to me with the whip stitch that normally we would say use a light colored
Mm.
yarn to whip stitch so that that kind of blends into the background. But
Uh,
as you've done, I know this is a tutorial. However, you've used a different color yarn, which could be a design element in and of itself. That's
oh, for
actually
sure.
the way with most all of these seaming techniques. You can use a different color yarn that matches or contrasts
Mhm.
and create something completely different.
Yeah, this picture I actually stole from Rafa Musa or Rafaela Tassoni. She's the one that did this particular whip stitch join tutorial, but I've done a tutorial myself. I just didn't have any pictures of it. And I've done the same
Gotcha.
thing where when you're trying to show the contrast and you're trying to show the stitch itself or the procedure itself, you do use something that sticks out. But I've done
Mhm.
this before in projects as well. But it was still purposeful as far as even the color that I chose to stitch it together still worked or was part of the blanket itself. So it still matched. I didn't go with I did a tablecloth where I made sure that there was lavender in every single African flower motif that I made so that regardless of all of the other colors that I used, the whole thing blended. It all matched.
Yeah.
And I used the lavender to put all of it together regardless of what the outside colors were.
But see, I think that's a really cool device that it's all very thoughtfully laid out. You're
Uh-huh.
not just whipping them together because you have to whip them together. It's actually a part of the process, which is really cool. I've never done the zigzag slip stitch. Talk to me about that.
That one's fun, because you hold your squares together and you slip stitch through the one on the left and then you stitch through the one on the right and you just go back and forth and it creates this like zipper look to it. And it's really quite
That's
fun.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the one on the far right is just a regular slip stitch,
Mhm.
and in that particular blanket, I wanted it to contrast so that the slip stitch when you do a slip stitch seam between squares, it actually stands up and becomes surface texture,
Mhm.
depending upon whether you do through all loops or through just inner loops.
Right.
And I and so that becomes a part of the design element in the blanket.
Yeah.
I love slip stitch. That's almost my go-to now, rather
Is
than
it?
whip. Yeah, I don't know, when I've got big squares like that blanket has, I love slip stitch, and this is another reason why I do love it. I don't have to cut and hope I have enough yarn to
Yeah.
whip stitch
Yeah.
and not have to start a new piece of yarn. I can just crochet those squares together, and it's
Yeah.
one piece with 2 ends, and that's it.
Yeah, that I mean, that's another good point to bring up too with the whip stitching. If you're not just doing little pieces together where, you can just do a little piece of yarn, you have to kind of calculate and you're constantly having to cut new chunks and make sure that you have every seam and every woven end in there perfectly so it doesn't come apart later. So yeah, that is
Ugh.
definitely something to think about.
And honestly, when you've got a blanket with squares, do you really want that many more ends to weave in? I mean,
No, I mean,
please.
I kind of do it as I go just because that's become my habit. But there
Mhm.
is every once in a while, I just am like, oh, I don't care. And I just go, 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 go. And then I flip it over and I go, oh my God, what
Oh,
did I
look at all those
do?
ends.
What was I thinking?
All right, we have some more on this one. In the memories blanket that we just concluded in February and March, when I put the strips of squares together, I use the mattress stitch, which is a really cool way to hide. It completely hides the seam. It puts the edges of the squares butt up against each other.
Mm.
And it's worked. If you look at, I don't have an example, so you just have to imagine. If you look at the top loop of a stitch, in the middle of it, there's a bar.
Mhm.
So if you stitch around that bar on one side and stitch around the bar on the other square,
Okay.
you get and you go up a few stitches and then you pull the yarn tight. It
Oh,
pulls that completely closed. It's a really cool stitch.
I think
Really
I'm
cool
gonna have
stitch.
to try that one. I have a new
Yeah,
project
have
and I
you
really want to make sure that it's a hidden seam. So I think I'm gonna try
yeah.
that.
Yeah, the only difficulty is when you're working with squares, of course, is where you start it because you could
Yeah.
get it slightly off. So you have to make sure that when you start in the corner of one, that it's exactly in the same place on the other square so that
Right.
they line up. So that when you look at that picture, you can see the granny stitches line up across from each other and the
Yeah.
corners end up the same. But I haven't used mattress stitch very much. I decided to use it for the memories blanket, and I was really happy with how the squares looked. There wasn't extra stuff that should have been hidden. It was really great.
Right. I just have to apologize because the husky is getting a little bit loud. She wants to go outside and she has to
Oh,
wait. So she might start like howling in the background, just throwing that out there.
well, Biz, if you haven't heard I have 2 dogs over here who are barking, so, it's just gonna be a
Oh,
dog fest. We love our
okay.
dogs.
Well, we love our puppies.
All right, and again, I have never done the zigzag lacy, so, I've seen it and I've definitely wanted to try it, but tell me how that one works.
That one is so easy. So, say you've got your squares edged out with single crochets. You start on
Mhm.
one single crochet, and what I always do is I create like a straight edge at the original, like at the bottom. And so I will single crochet or slip stitch. You can do either one, but I usually go single crochet and then I'll chain three and I'll go over to the other corner and I'll single crochet. And from this point on, it's just chain three. You skip a stitch as you're going, so it ladders up. and you single crochet on one side, chain 3, go over to the other one. So it's a little bit like that zipper stitch, only you're skipping
Yeah,
some one in between, and you're creating this lacy effect. I love it. And then what I did
you
is to
know,
kind of continue that around the border is I just went with a V stitch.
yeah. Yeah, because it absolutely looks like a V-stitch if you're not looking really closely, and
Yep.
you could build that out as wide as you wanted to,
Oh, for sure. It would be very
right?
easy. Yep.
Mhm. I
It's
like
a
that.
really nice way
I've
to kind of
seen it.
create a lacy effect.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I think that would be a really good that might be good in baby blankets, I don't know, because it does create holes, but if you want a lightweight blanket, that would be a great option
Yes.
and very
Yes,
decorative.
absolutely. I
Alright,
actually ended up
join us.
putting together a sweater like that as well.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah,
Very
it
cool.
just makes yeah, it was fun.
I like that. Yeah, so now I've got 2 new ones I have to try. Thank you, Biz. Okay.
You're welcome.
Alright, the last one, join as you go. You've probably heard of it. It's commonly known as Jago.
Mhm.
Um, this works really well with granny squares because, um, you work the first square in its entirety. Then you go on the first row, you go on to the next square, and you work the last round to the 3rd side, and then instead of doing chain 1 spaces, you do a slip stitch into the other square so that they're
Okay.
joined at the chain spaces. When you get to the corner, you join in the middle of the corner,
Uh-huh.
and then you finish the 4th side of that square. So that's 1 row.
Oh,
When you get
okay.
to the 2nd row, and you now have 2 sides that have to be joined, you work the first side and it's completely. You get to the corner and you join the 2nd side and the 3rd side, and then you complete the 4th, and it connects it to the row and the
Sure.
square within the current row. And it's just, it's a great way to blend granny squares together. You can't even tell where one no, you can in this blanket. This is my scrap can
Uh-huh.
blanket, but you can here because I used a different color. But if you use the same color, you can't really tell where one square ends and the other one begins when you
It
use this
sounds like it
method.
would be a really I've never done it before, but it sounds like it would be a really good way for those that are like an instant gratification kind of
Mhm.
creator where
Yep.
like I need to see progress. I'm not making 95
Yep.
squares and then putting them together.
Exactly. Yeah, now what you can do if you make them in different colors, which I've done that before, in fact, this is one of them, is you make all of the squares to the last round
Uh-huh.
and set them aside, and then you just pick one up as you need it. So you can do it either way. You can do one square at a time as you go, or you can
Uh-huh.
make all the centers and then work the rest of it as you join them together.
Gotcha. That yeah, I mean, like I said, I have never used it. I don't know why. I just never have. Um, I I just don't think that my designs lend itself to it very much.
No, and I use no, yours do not. My granny squares just love to be joined as I go.
I
So
love it.
they love it. That's the way to go. Now, keep in mind that there are lots of different ways to join squares or parts of blankets. If you're doing something in strips, there are a number of crochet alongs this last year and this year that are doing strips instead of squares or
Yeah, yeah.
components. And what they'll do is work the strip and then work transition rows. We kind of did the same thing in our
And
blanket, our
memories.
memories
Yeah,
blanket. You can see in the mattress stitch one, the
yeah.
transition rows between one section and another. So that's another way to join is to create one kind of transition row that
Mhm.
connects you to the next section. That's another way
Sure.
to seam as you go. All right, my friend, this one's
Mhm.
going to be fun.
Yes.
Borders. I
I
love me
love
some
borders.
borders. Now, you have some fantastic ones. I can't wait till we get to yours. I tend to be on the simple side. For years, my blankets just had single crochet borders. Let's just
Mhm.
slap on those single crochets and be done with it.
Color
But
done, yeah.
since then, I've discovered that there are so many other ways to decorate that blanket.
Mhm.
Now, I know that you have a pom pom border on one of yours, so this is
Mhm.
just a taste. But these are super easy to do. It's
Yeah.
chain, I think it's chain 6 or something. And then you make a bobble in the end of it,
Mhm.
and then you chain 3 to connect it to you skip some stitches and you connect it back to the blanket, and it
It's
creates
very
these fun little bubbles.
Yeah, it's very, very simple, but it's a very, very time-consuming,
Mm,
pattern. The one thing
it is.
because I did it on one of mine too, and oh my god, you have to really, really want pom-poms on your blanket to do it, but it is so
The
worth it.
It's so cool. The jury is still out for me on pom pom borders just because when I use a blanket, I'm not sure I want those things slapping me in the face when I pull it, you know, but they're really pretty. They're really
Yeah,
pretty. Um, being the granny square queen right here,
yes.
owning it, loving it. Um, of course, a granny stitch border is part of my repertoire. And it works great with anything that you make squares that have any sort of granny square component in it. And it's super easy. I think you'll agree with me, Biz, that we both
Absolutely.
start the border with a round of single crochet to give an even stable
Yes,
um,
always.
foundation for our borders, right? So I
Sometimes 2
started
rows.
that. Yeah, yeah, and I started that one with a single crochet round, which you can't really see because it's blended in, but
Right.
it gets me across those seams and makes a really nice even edge for me to work the granny stitches in.
Yeah. The thing
So
I love about a granny stitch edge like that is it's a great way for you to then take the colors that you've been using inside of your blanket and
mhm,
bringing them out to like
yep,
just finish off the look. It pulls everything together.
yeah, that's exactly what I did in that one, and I did the same thing with this single crochet border. Now I started this section by dissing on it, but it really is quite gorgeous.
It
And
is.
in that blanket, I these are some of my favorite colors. I have a favorite DK weight yarn from Stylecraft that's just called Special DK. That's it. It's an acrylic,
Yep.
super soft. They've got over 100 colors,
Oh, they're
and you can get
amazing.
it easily from the Wool Warehouse in the UK, and
Yep.
shipping is great. Um,
And it's not an
actually,
expensive yarn.
no, and shipping is not expensive, so I love using it when I can.
Yep.
But what I did in this one is I almost created an ombre look to it, starting with
Mm,
the main color of the blanket, and then working from lighter to darker out to the
yep.
edge. And
Yep.
just this blanket in person, one of the simplest blankets I've ever made, and it's just gorgeous because of the
Yes.
colors. I love it.
I love using color as depending on how busy it looks like yours is like got just the centers of your granny square and then you do a lace.
Yep,
Is that what that
yep.
is? So you're taking,
They're actually simple granny squares.
yeah, you're just
That's all
taking
they
something
are.
super simple, using
Mhm.
color to make that like pop. It just it
Yeah.
I love color play, but I love the ombre idea. And a single crochet border is extremely classic because sometimes you've got so much going on inside of your blanket
Mhm.
or with the
Mhm.
squares or this or that or the other that by the time that you get to the end, all you need to do is just make sure it all stays together. You don't have to add this big vavoom to it.
Exactly, and that's exactly the same thing with the linen stitch, which we used again, this is
Yeah.
from our memories blanket. I did mine a little differently from yours, and I think you included yours in this as well.
Yeah.
Um, Biz did her linen stitch where you do every other row or round is in the same color,
The main color. Yep.
almost giving it the illusion of bars.
Stripes.
Vertical
Yep.
bars along your stripes. I did every round, sorry, in a different color, so mine
Yeah.
comes out a little more, um,
Mosaic.
variegated. Well, there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah. It's
That's
a
wonderful.
little
But
more
I love a linen stitch as well.
water painterly. Is that right? Water
That
paint? Is that the right word?
watercolor?
Watercolor.
Watercolor.
God. Oh my gosh.
What? No, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
it. No, so
So,
let's see if
yeah.
I don't think I had any more because I like I said, my repertoire is pretty simple. Oh, no, I do have more. Oh, look at me being all creative. Um, one, it's a little hard to see in the you can see it on the left-hand corner of the shell. The shell is another classic border, simple to
Yes.
do. Put a round of single crochet and then do a round of shells and call it a day, and you're done.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and the next picture, I just used a double shell in a baby blanket I just released, where you do a round of shells as normal, then you do a
Yes.
round of chains and single crochets to set up a
Yeah.
round of offset shells so that they're kind of set inside each other. And that's the kind of border that if the body of your blanket is smallish and you want a bigger
Yeah.
blanket, you just keep repeating those rounds and you get a nice shell border. I loved working that one. It was really pretty.
That's a great idea, and it's very it's subtly fancy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's yes.
It adds something to the blanket that, like, it takes a very simple design and just goes,
Mhm.
"Ooh, now it's really something special."
Yeah, and along with our shell theme, for my Florin baby blanket, I added
Mm,
picots, so
mhm.
5 double crochet shells. On top of the 3rd one, you do a picot, and you get a
Mhm.
little bit of, added
Kind of
like
a
a crown.
crown
It was
effect.
really pretty. Yep.
I'm a sucker for a picot. They are one of those things that they they slow you down on everything you do, but
Oh
they're
my gosh,
so
they do.
cool.
Man, when I did that border, the whole time I was thinking, "What am
What
I
am I
doing?" But
doing?
it looks so cool. I'm not in
Yes.
love with picots like you are, Biz, basically because of the time it takes, but that's it's a choice. It's a
That's
choice.
funny.
Um, so the last one for me is, I did a baby blanket in December called the Christmas Bauble. And I wanted to finish it off with something that looked Christmassy, but wasn't too wild and crazy. So I
Right.
found the candy cane, which it could not be simpler. It is 5 double crochet of one color, 5 double crochet of the next color, and you just alternate that to the
Mhm.
corner, and it looks like a striped candy cane.
It does,
It's
it's fun.
hilarious how easy that is. Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, that's it for me, Biz. You are up.
I'm
Oh,
up.
man.
Okay, so, I I'm gonna show you the books that I get a lot of my inspiration from at the
Do you want
end.
me to pan out so they can see the books? Let's do that.
Sure,
We'll go
sure.
back here.
Okay, so I wanted to show you guys these. This one,
Oh, I have that one.
I get so many ideas from here. So I may not necessarily take the whole thing and use it right out of the book. I go, "Ooh, I like that stitch. How can I incorporate it into what I'm doing in my border?" I just want to see if there's so many in here. Ah, okay. I'm gonna save this one. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna save that one. But this book I have um it's called The
Oh, I
Complete
don't
Book of
have that one.
Crochet Border Designs. And so this one is marked all the heck because there are so many cool ideas in this thing. And I'm just going to quick,
Oh my gosh.
yes. So that's all I'm going to show with that one. But this lace border, you can pan back out if you want.
All right, I'm going back. Here we go.
The lace
Oh
border
gosh.
comes out of that book. I did use that one straight out of there. And it works like a pineapple. So if
I
you've
was just
ever
gonna say
done
that.
Yeah, if you've ever done any kind of pineapple crochet, it works the same where it's so simple. It's just chains and single crochets put in specific spots. and it gives
Mhm.
you a chart to use. It gives you, written instructions to use, all of it. So, hi Fern. And so it's just a lot of times when I do ones like that where I just take it from a book, of course I have to do the math. I have to figure out how it fits, all of that stuff. So, but that one requires blocking, and blocking is something we are going to
Mm.
talk about next month. But um, there are going to be borders that you use that you can't walk away from right away. You have to do something with them.
Yeah, I love that combined with that's the diamond stitch, right?
Yes, yes. Okay, so anybody that did
Woo!
the memories blanket and hated the interlock diamonds, I made several blankets out of just that pattern, people. I was
You
so
didn't
in love
just
with
make
it.
blankets, you made all the things. You've
I
got,
did.
like, a
I got like a whole line of stuff that I did with it. I was
that's
obsessed.
right.
But yeah, I just made like 12 by 12 squares with it and then edged it with that lace border, and I just called it lattice and lace because I didn't know what else to call it. But
Well, that's a perfect name,
it
perfect.
has a really great gardeny feel to it.
Mhm.
So, okay, so
Love
here's
it.
where my pom-poms differ from yours just a little bit. I don't have the
Gotcha.
height and they don't dangle away from the blanket. I just went I think like 2 stitches in between, and then we did the pom-pom, and then we just did 2 stitches in between because I wanted them really compact and close.
Mhm.
So the next 2 that we're looking at was my gingerbread blanket design that was done for Christmas 2 years ago. Yeah. And so the concept of the blanket is that, excuse me, we're all building a gingerbread house, and throughout the pattern, you'll hit certain parts where you get to choose between, excuse me, between frosting or candy. And this is how you decorate your gingerbread house as we go. And so when I got out to the edges, I needed to create edgings that went with like the theme. So the one with the pom poms came off of the candy blanket. So those are supposed to be like little buttermints that are going
Mhm.
around the outside. And then the one on the right has the shells with the dollops of like cranberry or red candy
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever. So that's
Yeah,
frosting.
yeah.
That's supposed to be fluffed along the edges of a gingerbread house. So what I did with my shells is I did a row of, how we hid our pom poms, not pom poms, popcorns in, where we did a color and then we did our popcorns and then we did a color over the top of the popcorns. That's
Right.
how
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got that effect with, and then I just went over the top of that with a shell.
I'm telling you, Biz, you put me to shame.
No,
I'm
no.
gonna go to look at that. I love those borders. All right, I'm moving on because these are great. Talk about these 2. These
All
are
right.
fabulous.
So the one on the left is called Walk in the Woods. That one is the inspiration behind it was of course everything woodsy, and it started because I fell in love with this plaid pattern that I had to have in a blanket. So I made that the centerpiece and then we worked from there. So when I got to the end, I was like, well gosh, how do I pull all of these woodsy things together? So I thought I'm going to do a leaf border, and I'm pretty sure that I got the leaf border from the little rectangle book that I showed you.
Mhm.
Um, the crochet board around the corner crochet borders. Um, but and I'm pretty sure that I pulled that one straight from that book too, because the way that they have it in the book, there is an establishing single crochet row, and then the next row has a different color in like a chain one single crochet skip row, and then the next row, those are just chains. So you crochet in between, you get to that one, you chain like 5, you go back in that hole, you chain 5, you go back in that hole, you chain 5, you go back in that hole,
Wow.
and then you single crochet along.
It looks way more complicated than that.
It does. The beauty of most edgings is that they're extremely simple we just make them look harder because of the
Mm,
combinations that they get put in.
yeah.
And I mean, that's all crocheters, and that's the beauty of being a crocheter is, depending on what you make, it's super simple for you to do, but it makes you look like a genius.
Well, we do need that, don't we?
Yes. And if you're willing to put in the time, you can really achieve quite a bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of time consuming, that would be the next one over. The
Mhm.
intertwined two color chains with picots. So if you've ever done where you've done a looped border where you're using 2 to 3 colors and you're making a chain, you're single crocheting and then you're going back and you're making a chain with the next one. And that's what this is. It takes forever and a day. This one's right up there with the pom poms. But this one's on my Nightmare Before Christmas blanket. And so for me, I needed the edging to emulate Jack's collar from the Nightmare Before Christmas characters. Because of course I use inspiration blankets, but I never put the actual characters into things. So I try to find stitches that I can use that are going to say, "Oh my god, I can totally see that," once you explain
Yeah.
what it is. So that was that one. And so it was just every other like chain whatever. So we would chain like I'm going to say 7 and then we did a picot and then we did another 7 and then we skipped so many stitches below and we put a single crochet and I mean it was just time consuming.
Oh.
But, when you're
Now I have seen that done in Christmas colors to look
yes,
again like the candy cane,
yes.
um,
And I
but
probably got it
it
from a Christmas blanket.
there you go. Alright, and they just keep going.
So
I love
these
it.
2, I'm gonna say I took those straight from the little book. That's why these little books are just so good because you don't have to work that hard to think up the really brilliant edgings. People have already
Mhm.
done it for you. All you have to do is the math and put it in there and make sure that you write it up so that it makes sense for your pattern. But like this one is another one of those ones. The one on the left, that one is the vintage Christmas blanket. And that one is another one that starts with that's a linen stitch up there where the little red dots are
Mhm.
before the picots.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible picture of that. But that's all linen stitch in that spot. That's what makes that little red pop out because the red was the last before I did the edging color. Because then when you go back through, I don't know if you can see it, but you single crochet in the space um, between the red stitches, and then in between the next set of red stitches, you do like a
Oh,
double
right,
crochet.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Yep.
do it like a double crochet, a chain one, a picot, a chain one, and another double
Yep.
crochet.
I
It's a
see
lot,
that.
but once
So
it's one of those ones.
it's almost a faux linen stitch. It's almost a
Yes.
linen stitch with extra stuff.
Yes, it is, and it creates a very crown look or a very, like, pretty
Mhm.
simple edging, and it's one of those ones where once you get in a rhythm, you're just moving. You don't it's not time consuming like so many of them. But, then this last one is in my what I call a power up blanket. It is an inspired blanket off of, oh god help me, what is it called? My Hero Academia. It's a manga. It was made for
Mm.
my son, and, that's one of his favorite, mangas that he was reading in animes, and so the main character, Deku, has this electric power that comes out of him that's the super hyper green color, and I started the blanket with a square in the middle that did an intarsia kind of version of that, but I wanted to also finish it with the Deku power. So I once again went to my handy dandy little book and I found that
Oh, I've seen that one
pattern.
in there, yes.
Yes. And so I just interpreted it into my blanket as this, little power. And then I just bordered it with double crochet on both sides so that it
That
would
is
speak on
really
its own.
cool. You know, that I look at that, if I didn't know basically how that was constructed, that would look to me like, how do you get the yarn to go that way?
I
But that
know.
if I'm to guess, that's actually 2 rows. The light green is 2 rows, right?
Yes.
So you
Yes,
would
it is.
do the single crochets together, chain, then skip or whatever, but that's 3 double crochets
Yes.
together, and then the next row would be like a granny stitch in the center of that to make it look
Kind
like
of, yeah. Yep.
yeah,
And then there's chain ones in between, I believe, if I'm reading
mhm,
no, maybe not. I don't quite remember. Yeah, there are. There are chain ones in between the tops. So when you're doing the bottoms, you're of course going one here, and then the next one to create
mhm.
that standout look on the bottom. And then you do some chain ones in between the ones on top. So, I mean, it's very, very simple. It's a lot of chaining, a lot of double crocheting, but um, it works up really, really quickly.
You know, that's another example of how something so simple that really is when you break it down into the couple of rows that make that power pattern. It really is quite simple,
It
um,
is.
and I think repetitive enough that it would actually be a mindful make.
It is. Well, and if as long as you've establish that you have the correct number of stitches on the row
Right.
below it so that you're not creating a headache for yourself. It's absolutely simple.
All right, let's see if we have anything else. I think that might be it. Oh, it is. Oh my goodness. All right, so we're just going to end this with we have lots of blankets in our shops. You can go and look at the borders that we've used. The instructions for those borders are inside the patterns. Some of our patterns are free on the blog, so you can get
Yeah.
ideas there. But you can find other things in all of our shops, Ravelry, Etsy, wherever we sell, and on our blogs from any of the free patterns that you see there.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we need to put those 2 books in the descriptions of our,
Oh, for sure.
episode. Yeah, because those are I haven't actually used I've seen those books, I've gotten
Yeah.
inspiration from them, but it sounds to me like you've really used those books for a lot of your borders.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
The Around the Corner Crochet Borders is an Edie Ackman book. If you want to span out, I'll put them up again.
Oh, yep, there we are.
So Edie Ackman is the one that did this book. And then this one is the complete book of crochet border designs by Linda Schapper, is what I'm reading. But like it's mind-boggling. This one in particular is mind-boggling how many different um pattern ideas there are in here. And like I said, you can
Mhm.
take them straight from I mean, it's like multiples on the pages. It's not just, oh, it's one per page.
Yeah.
No, it's like 3, 4, and sometimes 5 of them on there. And it's just sometimes you look and you just go, okay, I want to make something like that on my edging.
Yeah.
You can just use it for inspiration. It doesn't
Yep.
have to be watching from England. How timely, what just working on a border of a blanket. That's Esther.
Oh, that's
Welcome to the
cool,
group.
Esther.
But
Great.
yes, it's fun. Borders are one of the best parts of the blanket. It's the coup de grace, it's the final finish. It's depending on, we've said before, depending on what you're doing inside of your blanket. Sometimes the blanket is the star and you keep it simple to the outside.
Mhm,
Sometimes the stuff that's happening on the inside really needs that very dynamic
mhm.
border. And you can make a big statement, big, big statement.
And I think that's why I love blankets so much, not just for their cuddle factor, but there are so many ways to personalize a blanket and so many ways to highlight the parts of it that you want to make it truly an artistic piece.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of fun. Hi, Gabe. Is that your grandson? Hi, Gabe.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I think let's see. Oh, he said hi back. That's fantastic. All right. I think we've given them a lot of ideas, a lot of things to think about. I don't know why Blankets are so popular right now. I think we go through phases, but
Mhm.
blanket making right now seems to be at an all-time high, at least in my opinion. And it's so much fun to see all the possibilities when it comes to putting together a blanket. I just it makes me wanna go pick up my yarn and do another blanket right now.
Oh, I know. Well, I've got one that I've been working on, and I'm just it's taking forever because, everything with my wrist, I had to take my brace off, but, uh, if I can throw my 2 cents in there as far as, like, why are we making blankets? I think that people are getting a hold of the longevity of a blanket and,
Mhm.
the fact that it uses up so many of your resources because a lot of us are becoming very, very conscious of I can't just go buy a whole bunch of new yarn just because I want to, with this, that, or the other, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like there's a turn in the tide.
Mhm. Well, I'm here I love it. So,
Me too.
there are blankets in our near future for sure,
Yay!
coming out of our shops. So watch for those.
I have 2 that I have to make this year for babies, and I'm like, "Oh my god, am I gonna have enough time to get it done?" Because 'Cause they're both due
You
in
will.
August, like a week apart.
Oh,
I know.
get busy, get busy. All right. I think it's time for us to figure out what we've been watching this week, and I'm not sure what I have to offer. So I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I was a little bit convicted. I've been reading a book, called The Alone Advantage. It's by Terry Savelle Foy, and, she's a Christian author, but she teaches leadership principles, and she teaches, like, how to become or chase your dreams. I don't know how to put it, but there was something that she had in her book, and I think it was a quote by somebody else, but how you do anything is how you do everything. And another one too is if it's not feeding you, it's depleting you. And
Mm,
I had to really take stock in what I've been watching because I have found that my personality tends to change with the shows that I watch. My emotions go up, they go down, that kind of stuff. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try this week to stay away from the horror that I usually watch because, like, I love horror movies, like that's my genre. And anything to do with like true crime, that kind of stuff. Just a really morbid personality, but I thought I'm gonna try not watching any of that and see if it just does make a change. And so I've been watching the HGTV Design Stars. And I went back, it was like 8 seasons. So I went way back to the beginning, like 2007. And oh my gosh, the stuff is so dated and all of that stuff. But it's
ah,
been kind of fun to watch just because it's very, very simple. There's not a lot of drama to it. It's not where they really have the opportunity to yeah, they're mean to each other sometimes. But anyway, um but it doesn't have all that death and it doesn't have all that negativity and all of that stuff. And
mhm.
I've kind of found that my personality, not my personality, but like my spirit's a little more up this
It's
week than it has
uplifted,
been.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there must be a theme this week because while I'm still catching up on, my network dramas, last weekend we watched it's either Unfrosted or Frosted. It's a comical look with all of these huge stars about how Pop-Tarts came to be. It's just
Oh,
it's
wow.
hilarious, hilarious. Melissa McCarthy, not Hugh Jackman, Hugh Grant,
Oh
Jerry
gosh.
Seinfeld, all of these huge
Really
stars.
funny people.
I
Yeah.
remember Pop-Tarts is just one of my all-time favorite if we're gonna talk about packaged food, it's just there's nothing like a toasted Pop-Tart. I'm sorry. But it was
Not wrong.
hilarious. We watched that, and then I guess there's a food theme going on because we also watched, a few episodes of Is It Cake? Where bakers come in, they get
Oh, yeah.
objects, and they have to bake a cake to look exactly like it. then a panel of judges comes in and tries to find the cake.
Oh,
And
wow.
if and the bakers win or lose according to whether their cake was identified or not. And
Wow.
it's hilarious. So I guess there's a food theme going on, a design theme going on. I don't know what it
Mhm.
is, but maybe both of us just needed a little
Just
break.
needed, creativity and a different angle. I mean, like,
There you
we can
go.
only watch so many creative deaths, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's not to say I didn't watch NCIS. I did, but, you know, I watched a lot of food. So,
Yeah. I mean, when I was with Tony, I watched, my regular, rugby and, we watch MASH for bed, and then, it's usually just our trash reality TV shows.
well, we'll see what food stuff we can watch this weekend and
Yes.
design things, right?
Yes.
I've got a couple of movies I wanna watch this weekend. We'll see if that happens. All of us here in this household are just death walking right now. We're so tired. So, we may not all of us are kinda going, "What am I supposed to do right oh, yeah, I have a
What is
podcast to do. Oh,
today?
no, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding." Um,
That's it.
but I have the feeling that we'll go, we should watch a movie," and then all of us will be sitting in the family room going, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it may
Well,
not
I've
happen.
started asking Tony because he's been so busy. So when he finally sits down to actually watch TV, I'm like, "Okay, is this one gonna be interesting enough for you to actually stay awake, or are you going to be asleep really fast? Because if you're gonna be asleep really fast, I'm just watching this over here because 'cause I'm
I'm
not wasting
watching
my time."
something else. No, I hear
That's
you.
been our conversations lately.
Yeah, they're so deep, Biz, so deep. Um, all right.
It's beautifully
I think
simple.
it's time for us to head out the
Yep.
the virtual door here. So, we have had an absolute blast today talking about our favorite seaming and border
Yes,
techniques for our blankets. I hope you got something out of it. You've got all these ideas. You're going to go
yes,
get those 2 books because they should be on your shelf.
they should.
Um, and we will be back next week with fun stuff to start the summer. So we hope you have a great weekend and a week to come with
Yes.
lots of crochet because that's what we're here for, right?
Mhm.
And I will say bye to you, Biz. Have a great weekend. And
Bye,
we will see
everybody. You
you
guys, yes, have
on
fun.
the flip side. Bye, everybody.
Bye.